Hey everyone, welcome back. I am not feeling super great today, so I'm going to make this swift, but I wanted to be able to report. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and every day it seems to get more and more. So I want to make sure that I'm not super behind just because the amount of information that's coming forward is very intense. So if this is your first time hopping on, welcome. My name is Shakti. Welcome to Shakti TV. This Fireside number 19 is a one in a series that I have done since all of this started in March. And it's my attempt to give you guys current events that aren't intensely biased and swayed by the mainstream media narrative, which is, in my opinion, the number one enemy problem that we have in the world. I don't really think it's a this party, that party. I think it's the media, period. I think we have to be really mindful of what we're being shown and told, and to be really wise on the sources that we're using, because there's a very evident agenda to what we should be believing or listening to. And I think that's garbage. So I'm doing my citizen journalist part to give you guys things to think about and research. Hey, Paul, welcome. Okay. So we're going to start off with 414, the White House briefing. And so not only did the president flat out pull funding for the WHO, which if you don't know by now that they're extremely corrupt and biased, then surprise. Hey, everyone. I'm seeing you guys hop on. They are, and they intentionally misled the management of this crisis, and the president knows that. And he told us that he knows that. And not only did he say he was going to defund them, but he's also running an investigation on the WHO, because he mentioned one of the things they said was they talked about there's no human-to-human transmission, and they did not encourage border closing. And the president was the one who called a border close. And then there's this video of Pelosi, like February 24th, talking to people about going to Chinatown and hanging out like everything's fine when there was a crisis at hand. And she tried to delete that video from her Twitter account. Yeah, from her Twitter account. But luckily, the internet is forever. Someone found it, retweeted it, unfortunately for her. I mean, if you haven't figured out, she's a deep state actor. She totally is. Like, she's a hot mess. That lady needs to just go home for good. So not only did he defund the WHO, he's also running an investigation. And he specifically said they knew. He said that during the briefing. They knew, and they didn't say anything. And then he said, remember the throwaway lines. And hopefully they didn't know to the degree that this would all be, because that would be an even worse, I think he said travesty or something like that, than what's currently happening. Did y'all catch that? Y'all catch when he said that? And hopefully they didn't know how bad it was. Basically what he's telling you is he's going to figure out. And when he figures it out, the hammer's coming down. And everybody who was involved is going to be tried for treason. Like, that's what's going to happen if you guys haven't figured that out. And there's been a lot of criticism on the president about doing things like disbanding one of Obama's organization to handle pandemics and basically undoing a lot of the things that Obama had in place. And what I encourage you guys to do is, number one, do your research. But number two, think about why he would do that. And get out of the mindset of, well, I just don't like him as a person. He's regressing everything. Is he, though? Really ask yourself, why would he go in there and pull out of all these accords that particular president in that particular agenda agreed to? Why would he be seeking to do that? This is how you become, a citizen journalist. This is how you start really getting to the bottom of things. It's like understanding what were the motivations, or what would be the motivations behind certain things outside of my personal bias of that person as a leader coming into a country what would be a motivation to disband certain things? It's just a question that I'm posing to you guys. If you also haven't noticed, he brought a lot of people on stage to talk about, how American companies are producing American solutions. And if you haven't figured out that a huge part of what he did during this pandemic was nationalize our own support system, then you missed a really, really important thing, because he created from our own country materials like ventilators, masks, gowns, things of that nature, hospital rooms, hospital beds, hospital ships. Certain companies stopped making what they were making and started making things that we needed. Medication, started production of certain medications, right? So he did this massive overhaul of, almost, it seems like overnight, nationalizing a whole bunch of goods that we were importing from other countries. And so a lot of people were criticizing him, like, well, why didn't he receive the test that the WHO gave him, right, for testing COVID? Think about why he wouldn't do that, okay? Knowing now what we know about the WHO, knowing now that he's defunding them because they lied and they were specific in their agenda, why would he take tests from those people? He knew then that there was something wrong, right? So he rejected their resources because he knew. It wasn't a mistake, wasn't a drop. It was intentional. We just didn't know because no one communicated it to us. Weeks later, we get this storyline of defunding the WHO, etc. And if you guys missed the article, there's now an article circulating around in more than one source talking about, was the virus released from a lab? Interesting, because the WHO and a lot of other sources were convincing us it came from a bat. Lo and behold, that's wrong. And we, those of us that are following alternative narratives, knew that from the gate. We're like, that shit is man-made and it is toxic. And now that's becoming like public knowledge. Now that's leaking into the mainstream and everybody's talking about that. But we sounded crazy, right? We sound crazy and we proposed these theories, and all of a sudden, that's what's going to happen. It's like all the crazy people are going to be vindicated very soon. So if you're one of the crazies, just know it's happening right now. And very soon, everybody's going to know we weren't crazy. So yeah, this emphasis on public-private partnership, the focus on creating a nationalized support, no more world experts, no more globalized experts, globalized options. That wasn't even, yeah, but someone did, like, I was reading on a list on Facebook, they were like, wow, he could have accepted their testing from the beginning and he could have, I'm like, no, he couldn't have, because he fucking knew that they were corrupt. So, and the other criticism he gets a lot is like, why is he being so optimistic? Why is he like saying that we're going to get through this? And I'm like, that's his job, everybody. If you're the leader, the people who are making those comments aren't leaders. That's what that's communicating to me. You don't lead an organization. You don't lead a home. You don't lead a team. You obviously don't know jack shit about leadership, because part of being a leader is giving eternal hope to the people that you lead. That is your job. That's literally your job. And even though you're giving facts and you're giving specs, you're not there to be like, well, the ship is going to sink. Might as well just fucking jump right out as soon as you can, because this isn't going to get any better. Like, that's not what we do, right? No matter what, that's not what we do. That's not the point. When you're a leader, you give hope. As you give stats, as you give deets, which he has given, and he's had experts go on there and talk about the details and the numbers and blah, blah, blah. That's his job. Stop with that nonsense comment. And then this is another one of my favorite reporter questions, because these are all things I also get from listening to the reporters, which are the worst during the briefings. Why is now a good time to defund the WHO? And I want to be like, I don't know, Pelosi, why is now a good time to run a second fake impeachment? You tell me. Because the first one was fake. And that's going to come up. That's currently coming up right now. Department of Justice is reviewing all of the reports. They're all fake. Everything is fake. Everything was contrived. That's going to become public knowledge soon. So instead of asking him why now's a good time to defund a corrupt organization that's literally been lying to us for decades about world health, maybe we should be asking her why it's a great time to run some papers on the second impeachment that's also going to be fake. Sorry, no. And then another one of the reporters with, are you going to make the governors, when he was talking about reopening the country, are you good? They want to position him as a dictator. And I remember when I watched him say that, he's like, well, I have the authority. Like in this situation, I have the authority to do XYZ thing. And they want him to sound like a dictator so harsh. And really all he said was, they're going to cooperate with me because I have the authority. And that they are. They're not going to not cooperate. I don't want to say I'm going to make them do anything. They're not. They will cooperate. That was his stance on that. And then, of course, I said it. They're going to try and make him into a dictator because that statement. The next day on Twitter, dictator Trump hashtag was freaking trending. And I was like, this is so predictable. Like mainstream media, y'all are predictable. Y'all need to get it together because we already know what you're trying to do and it's not working. So please stop. It's annoying. Nobody wants to listen to you. So here's what's really interesting. Trump also decides to hold a gathering with coronavirus survivors, which was fascinating. Here is why. So he's talking about hydroxychloroquine. He's been talking about it for a hot minute and with a lot of emphasis. And that's curious, right? And then he's got in this roundtable and he's talking to all these survivors about how they got better from this virus. And then they land upon this one woman, right, who recovered with hydroxychloroquine. Turns out she also has Lyme. Turns out that the White House doctor is now working with this lady to see, like, to investigate her health. And wouldn't it be real interesting if they discovered that Lyme, this whole idea that Lyme was man-made and created as a bioweapon, that's actually true. And wouldn't it be fascinating if something like hydroxychloroquine could fix it? Wouldn't that just be so fascinating? Stay tuned. Can't wait to report on that one. It's getting good. Okay, so that same day, 4/14, I found a video of heavyweight boxer David Rodriguez talking about the very same things that get talked about in Out of the Shadows, which if you haven't seen that documentary, it's phenomenal. And it's linked on my previous Fireside chat. Okay, well, we're about to discover a whole lot about Lyme, so hang on to your panties because it's about to get serious. David Rodriguez filmed a whole video. It's 10 minutes talking about how the Hollywood elite are being taken down as we speak. And he addressed things like trafficking and a lot of things that were very interesting. And I don't know, it's worth a listen. I'll put the link underneath this video. Y'all can watch it, decide what you want. But considering that this has been trending now and it's only increasing in trend, I find this very fascinating. So I will share that link. Also, big fan of the U.S. Surgeon General Adams, who went public and said, I'm dumping the entire WHO CDC Gates model, and we're working with real data. So you can pretty much guess by now that nobody's a big fan of Gates. Nobody wants to follow his propaganda. Nobody wants to peddle vaccines the way he wants to peddle them. At this point, he's getting crushed on every level. And the plan that they had to force everyone to do XYZ thing is crumbling. So that's pretty fun to watch. I also follow a guy by the name of Praying Medic. He's on YouTube as well. He's a QAnon follower, and he does really amazing decodes. He's very thorough. He pieces things together like super well. But there's one particular video that he has where he has a sound clip in the video. And I just want you guys to watch that sound clip. I'm not putting it so much for his decodes. I'm putting it because it's an interview that matters, and it has to do with Durham, and it has to do with the grand jury indictments that are happening. So I just want you guys to listen to that audio clip. It's probably about 5-6 minutes into his video. Worth watching, because I talked about the grand jury thing last video. This is more evidence that that's happening. Okay. By the way, I did get my stimulus check. I told you guys that I would tell you. I did get it, so it's real. It's not fake. It happened. So, Elaine, when you watch Praying Medic's video, he will tell you what is happening. They're not going to tell you who's getting arrested and what's going to happen yet. Like that conversation is nowhere near happening right now. But for sure, people are going to trial. They are being indicted. That is happening. And it's been happening kind of in quiet. The subpoenas are being sent out. Witnesses are being interviewed. That is happening. But we are not going to get any official statements until the trials are done, the evidence is complete. The first thing I think we're going to get word on is going to be the impeachment. I personally think we are first going to learn that the impeachment was a hoax and that it was completely contrived and that the documents were falsified and that there were some FBI people that were involved. I think that's going to be the first thing we're going to learn about. And then after that happens and we realize how we've been played, then everything else is going to be revealed. So I think that's going to be the personal step by step. Okay. So then yesterday, the president comes out of the gates running and he decides he's going to threaten the Congress, all of Congress, with adjourning them if they don't appoint the people he's been trying to appoint to different positions for the past 3 years. So he talked about some judges, he talked about media director, he talked about the agriculture department, he talked about different people that he has been trying to give them a job, and Congress won't vote on them, won't approve them, won't put them in a position. And it's being held up now for 2 to 3 years, everybody kind of differently. And he said, I'm done, basically, playing this game of you guys holding up my appointments. So if you don't vote and appoint these people to the jobs that we need, especially right now, I will adjourn all of Congress and have them appointed myself. Not sure if you missed that or caught that, but the gauntlet has been tossed. That he is not playing around. He is not playing around. And then they were like, well, wouldn't you have to like go to court? And like, yeah, I'll go to court and I'll win, basically, because why don't we have these jobs filled? And it caught my attention that it was agriculture that they were resisting, it was judges, and it was media, right? Because agriculture, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Obama did sign an agreement with Monsanto when he was president. So I voted for Obama, and I regret that now, knowing what was done in the shadows, very in the shadows. So I found it interesting that they didn't want to appoint someone to the Department of Agriculture or media, right? It would handle the media outlets of this country. Interesting. Or judges, because you know they stay there for a long time. You appoint a judge and they stay forever. So fascinating, the specific jobs they don't want filled, I thought. Oh, and what was the other thing he said? He talked about the WHO. I made that comment about him saying, you know, hopefully they didn't know the gravity because it would be an even worse offense. But then he said, there's something very bad going on. And obviously those of us who've been following these videos were like, duh, there's something really bad. Like we know what's going on at the same time all this is happening. But here's what I want all of you guys to understand. Like, things have to be revealed in succession. It has to make sense to the public. You're not just going to be bombarded with all of this information. Like, in order for you to understand why certain decisions will be made, why certain people will disappear, why certain people will be incarcerated, tried for treason, whatever the thing is, you have to know the backstory. You have to have something to build on. So you're not going to be given information just like flat out, like word vomit. Here's all these crimes against humanity. Here's all these things. That's not going to happen. It's going to be very strategic. So just stay patient with that and follow the reports, listen to the briefings yourself. And of course, I always pick out my favorite things to talk about and I will bring them here to you. But start asking yourself some questions like, if you were someone like me who didn't approve of the president and who wasn't like pro-president at all, because I had this idea of him that was primarily formulated by the media that I was watching, start asking yourself critical questions that allow your brain to think. Like, for example, why would he disband all of these things? Why would he pull out a Paris Accord? Why would he, you know, with a critical eye, start asking those questions and then start doing research? And again, Dr. Shiva is amazing. I follow him on Twitter, and he does the best interviews and the best explanations of why certain things are being done or not done. He's like hardcore against WHO, does not subscribe to Gates' philosophy on vaccinations or mandatory vaccinations. He's really hardcore, but he's such a great teacher. I really like watching his stuff. So he would be a great resource for you to learn from. But just start asking yourself some critical questions and then piecing your opinion together yourself. Because we are at a stage right now as a community, as a country, as a global community, that if we are not asking those questions for ourselves and coming up with our own answers, we will be lost. And we need to start trusting our gut again and trusting the materials that we receive, and then like reading something and saying to ourselves, okay, does this resonate or not, before we share it, before we move it along into community and give wind to something that it could be harmful or false. So an example of that was this whole dialogue that was passed on by the Washington Post that his name was going to appear on the checks, the president's name, and they were going to be delayed because of that. That was completely fake. The Washington Post put that article out. Everybody who reads the Washington Post bought it like a bag of snacks and started sharing it. And this girl got in a fight with me on my thread about it. And I showed her multiple sources that were saying the contrary to that. The Department of Treasury said there will be no hang up. Like, that's not going to hang up anything. And in fact, they both called out the Washington Post as being the specific media outlet that created that story, right? So be careful with what you're reading and believing and sharing. They're not all in your best interest. They don't want to give you the real news. And there's an agenda at play here. We have to become super discerning right now more than ever. I also wanted to say, I forgot to thank my patrons early on. So thank you so much to my patrons. You guys are the best for supporting my work and the research that I do with this stuff. I also posted out today on my Patreon about doing a tapping session, an EFT tapping session, emotional freedom technique, helps with anxiety, depression, things of that nature. And I got some feedback from one of my patrons saying, yes, I would love to do this. So what I'm going to do is, for anyone who is a patron, and again, you can become a patron with $1, $5, $10, $25. There's all these different brackets you can become a patron, but all of my patrons are going to have access to an EFT tapping session around things like anxiety. I decided to make that one of the perks of becoming a patron. Usually you get perks if you're like the top 2 tiers of patron, but I'm opening this up to all of the patrons to have access to. And we will do a sequence on tapping on anxiety. So hopefully that gives you guys some peace and brings you guys some balance. And if it goes really well and you guys love it, I can do more of those things for different, like we can address different emotions in our tapping sessions. And if you don't know what emotional freedom technique is, you can simply Google it. There's a lot of people on YouTube that do it as well, like generic ones. I really like specific tapping, like tapping into very specific emotions or memories. It's super effective. It's a really great tool. All right, so that's it for my reporting for the day. Thanks so much for watching. And if you have any questions, as always, I'll have the links underneath the video for you to follow. All right, my friends, have an amazing evening.